So we're back, Coffee with April. This time we're picking up on something we did in the past and we're going to start do again, which is basically just talking about our subscription coffee here at April. And last Tuesday we sent out our coffee. Which coffee was it?
It's a Gallenbauer.
Kenyan coffee, for those of you that don't know.
Yes.
The purpose of this video is to walk through every single detail about this coffee. We're sitting here, we're drinking it now, so we're probably gonna talk a bit about what we're drinking, maybe.
Yes.
It's actually a very tasty cup of coffee. I say that as if that was a surprise, but it's actually really good. We'll get back to that. We just want to give the people that's subscribing the opportunity to sit down, drink the coffee, and just listen to the concept behind it so that they can correlate taste with craftsmanship, in lack of a better term. So, should we go through just the green coffee first? Like a bit of background on Gallenbauer, why do we have it at April? Where does it come from?
Yeah, so as we mentioned, Gallenbauer is a Kenyan coffee. It's actually the third Kenyan coffee we work with this season.
Yes.
I like to say, yeah. And but this is the AA selection. We previously had some Caragodo, Peabury, some really nice coffees, but for me, at least, this has been the Kenyan coffee of the season. And unfortunately, we're coming up to an end of it. So it's a beautiful AA selection. It's a fully washed process. And then that's, as we mentioned with Gallenbauer, it's actually taking the name from the stream, which is closely located to the processing factory. So the wash processing is actually done using the water from the Gallenbauer stream. It's an incredibly interesting, clean coffee with sort of red grapey notes, a little bit of hibiscus, really nice floral character that we didn't necessarily expect from this coffee initially, but it's really developed really well over the aging. It's still tasting incredibly good right now as well.
Yes, and I mean, it's for me personally, the cool thing with this is that it was still the first Kenyan coffee I ever roasted, like back in the days.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Mateo.
Yeah, you mentioned,
So that was like my first experience with Kenyan coffee. Was this delicious, like fruit bomb of a coffee.
It has quite a good bit of intensity, like good Kenyan coffees generally
for
do.
sure.
So,
I mean,
that's definitely part of it.
I think it's been amazing. It's been amazing since we got it. It changed a bit in taste structure from the beginning to the end. We actually have another video on this, which is explaining a bit about how we changed our roasting style from when we got it to now, which we'll probably link on down here as well, so that you can look at it. So this specific coffee, from a roasting perspective, we're just going to walk you through. Take paper and pen and write it down if you want to. I don't know. So just the specs of the roast. It's a very simplistic roast approach here. Again, we're locking in a 12 kilo batch ice on a 15 kilo lowering behind you. Total roast time 9 minutes 6 seconds. First crack, it's at 8 minutes 3 seconds, leaving us with a development time of 1 minute and 3 seconds. End temperature 205.6 degrees Celsius. Start temperature, which we do not believe is relevant whatsoever here at April. Just as a side note, I know we're gonna have to do a video journal about that as well. It's 173.4 degrees Celsius. That might as well have been 120 or 250. We would have roasted with the exact same burner settings and burner approach anyhow, right? So that's the kind of specs of the roast. Again, it changed quite a lot from when we first had this coffee in, because green coffee is changing with the time. I think this is one of the rare coffees that's been tastier now. I mean, Kenyan coffees is always tastier and later in the season.
Interestingly, yeah, I mean, sometimes the balance is much better. Some of the flavors can still be present from the initial part, but actually the flavor structure just comes a little bit closer together for me in some cases. Yeah. And with this particular coffee, I mean, the florals are really what's been doing it for me. And with the aging, the sort of intensity coming down a little bit, that really benefits from the aging for me.
Sure, it's definitely. Definitely. Where are we? Because we're drinking it now.
Yep.
And it's actually very tasty. And Joe brewed this cup. How do we brew this specific kind of cup at the moment?
So this cup is actually brewed with AeroPress. So both of us are actually in competition mode right now. Yep. So we're both trying a lot of different brew methods, a lot of different brewers. Part of that includes brewing with concentrates. That's potentially because coming up into compulsory rounds, we need a nice approach to brewing different styles of coffee. Concentrates can beat that. This particular brew is a concentrate brew. It's a 30-gram dose with the initial pour of 120 grams. That's using the AeroPress in the original, in the inverted setting. So we're using the inverted setting, and then the water temperature that we're actually using for this initial 120 milliliters is set at 79 degrees. So it's actually
cool. So that's a bit lower.
So it's actually quite a low temperature in brewing, and the grind setting is actually very coarse. So for us, that's actually the coarsest setting on an EK43. Now everyone's EK43 might be a little bit different in terms of calibration. So just play around with your grinder and look at what you can achieve with coarse grinds while still getting a reasonably level grind distribution.
I think it's fair to say. Well, it's kind of fair to say grind as coarse as you can always. That's at least how I am approaching my brewing at the moment. Not saying everyone should, but I mean, I think grinding coarse is giving you a way better taste structure in general. So grind as coarse as you can, and then regulate strength in other ways than your grind size.
Sure. So when we talk about regulating strength in this case, I mean the strength of the concentrate is actually going to come out at about 4% TDS or even higher. And that's essentially because we've got the 30-gram dose, then we've got the 120-gram dose of your brew water. So you've actually got a 1-to-4 ratio in brewing.
That's pretty.
I mean, you're actually getting pretty close to espresso brewing to some extent, but you're using the AeroPress, using the coarse grind. Once you get that 4% TDS concentrate, then you're looking at dilution. So when we talk about the strength, that dilution could be 100 grams of additional water. It could be 90, it could be 110. It depends on what you're looking for in the final cup. For us, we still want intensity, and really we're looking to maximize sweetness with this coffee, I think. In this brew, we've managed to do it. It's actually really, really tasty.
This is super tasty.
It wouldn't necessarily, it wouldn't necessarily always work. Part of that can be try some different temperature settings. It could also just be sort of mid-80s as well, and maybe look at different dilution levels as well. There can be some really interesting things there. One important thing to say, when you are brewing with the AeroPress, make sure you're agitating. Yep.
So we have, you're basically, I mean, your extraction always peaks in the beginning of your brew. We all know that by now. We just want that extraction to be basically as aggressive as possible. And when you are grinding very, very coarse and brewing with very low temperatures, obviously that initial extraction most of the times is lower than with a higher temperature finer grind, right? So you do need to give it a bit of help on the way by stirring the shit out of it.
Pretty much.
Again, the duration of that can change depending on what you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean that's also one of the variables that you're welcome to change. In this case, we're agitating from the initial pour up to 30 seconds. So that's starting the brew with 120 gram pour, agitating the entire time up to 30 seconds, flipping that AeroPress over on top of the vessel, and then waiting until 1 minute to finish the brew. Total brew time of about 1 minute 20. So it's an incredibly short brew time in relation to the dosing that you're working with. Yeah. But again, we're looking to capture a sort of very niche image of this coffee and accentuate all of the small parts of it that we really want to display. In this case, florals, sweetness, nice rounded body. And this brew method can help us to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's, I mean, it's again and again, I think the cool thing with concentrates is the balance of the cup through different temperatures. Again, this is not a brewing video, so I'm gonna leave it at there, but if anyone wants to explore that, and especially when you compete, it becomes really important because people try the coffee for a long time. At home, maybe you're not We're gonna wrap this up with, I'm looking at our sensory data here because we're using Cropster. And with Cropster Cup, we can, this is actually really cool because we see all the individual attributes in relationship to what we tried, and we're very similar. Me and Joe here has been calibrating for
Thankfully,
a bit of time now, but we're actually very close, which is what we're looking at now. However, for those of you that want to know, the specific coffee currently has a cup score of 87.88 by us here at April. It's fair to say that at April, that means it's a really fucking good coffee because it's a very high score for us. We very, very rarely give any coffee a score closer to 90. Almost never happens.
No.
If it happens, it tends to be Kenyan coffees.
Yeah,
actually.
pretty much. The occasional competition lot maybe, but it's...
yeah, sure. Yeah. But I mean, a funky geisha usually scores, what, 85, 86 maybe?
Generally, yeah.
Because they're funky, and we don't like funky coffees. But that's really cool. Some of the flavor notes, I mean, we've already been through them, but definitely grapish. We have ripe plum in this one as well. A bit of apple character on and off as well. I mean, bottom line, it's a pretty amazing coffee. We also have on the website a few other brewing details about this coffee as well. We have an information page, so if you want more information, you can find it there.
Sure. The brew method we've used here, we actually have a brewing guide for as well.
We have a video as well, yeah, that's true.
So, so if you are interested in trying that, you're not really confident with my explanation, you're more than welcome to check out Patrick's video.
I think that was a pretty good explanation.
Yeah, we try.
And I mean, as always, if you find a better way to brew this coffee or a way that you really like, you know, share it with us, comment down here. Again, this is where you're going to find all the information about our subscription coffees in the future. If you want to subscribe to our coffee, you can probably do it down here as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
I can
put a lot of links in there.
Yeah.
And then, thank you for watching. It's an amazing coffee. We're gonna roast the last batch on Tuesday, so if you are not subscribing, you missed out on an amazing coffee.
Yep.
I mean, that's a pretty, that's how it is.
Pretty solid.
Cool. Thank you, guys. We're gonna wrap it up here.